Washington, D.C. tries to pass an updated criminal code, but gets smacked down hard with bipartisan action from Capitol Hill. And it's Democrats who are screaming the loudest. By the way, I'm Brian. Thank you for joining me today. We're taking a dive into this circumstance here, and it's a weird one. Definitely a political intrigue where of betrayal, politics, principles, and the lack of same. And at this rate, it's going to be a full-time job just to keep up on all of the insanity in this country. Let me tell you, I've scanned through the 329 pages of this bill that was the Revised Criminal Code Act of 2022. This is the D.C., Washington, D.C. had actually put up a commission to update and modernize their criminal code, make it consistent throughout, and in all respects, a modern criminal code. But there are some problems and some people are complaining. The political football that is the Revised Criminal Code Act of 2022 comes down to politics at its finest. To quote Stuart Varney, Fox Business, "At a time when violent crime is surging, the city council voted to reduce prison sentences, give jury trials for almost all misdemeanor cases, reduce penalties for burglary and carjacking, and cut the maximum penalty for a felony with a gun from 15 years to just 4. Senator Joe Manchin said it best, according to the Epoch Times. Manchin said he does not want to lower penalties for criminals, but instead wants those people to face jail time. "I don't support it," he said. "I want to put people away. I don't want to let them out." And at a time when Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot got the boot in the recent election because of her soft on crime policies, it's clear that rising crime is a Democrat weak point at this time, which results in this fascinating dichotomy. And I apologize in advance for the number of confusing ways this next little bit uses the word veto. Now, part one, Democrats support home rule for Washington, D.C., and possibly even making a 51st state out of it. Part two, the City Council of Washington, D.C. passed this crime bill, which was then vetoed by Mayor Muriel Bowser. She was concerned that it would overwhelm an already overwhelmed legal system with not insufficient judges, insufficient enforcement, and she was concerned it would overwhelm it to put this new bill in place. She vetoed it, but the city council overturned her veto. Step three, the law then went to review by the Congress, which has veto power over all laws in the District of Columbia. They voted to overturn this legislation, effectively vetoing it. And number four, up until this vote was taken, Democrats in Congress were under the impression that Joe Biden would veto this action by Congress and therefore support the revised criminal code and thus the City Council of Washington, D.C. So some made the politically safe move of voting in favor of overturning this legislation. And then, of course, number five, the betrayal. Then Joe Biden decided to sign the bill instead of veto the bill, overturning the Revised Criminal Code Act of 2022. All this because Democrats and Biden himself are politically vulnerable in a time of skyrocketing crime. If our politicians would focus on governing in accordance to a service mindset instead of a power and control mindset, this never would have happened in the first place. But here we are. In short, it looks like Democrats thought they'd be able to have their cake and eat it too, but forgot the first rule of modern U.S. politics. Always look out for number one. In the meantime, a new revised criminal code act has already begun taking shape, the RCCA of 2023. Perhaps instead of this omnibus legislation that is too vast to cope with, the City Council of Washington, D.C. should vote on smaller updates, put this into chunks, get the update done a little bit at a time so that if there's an issue with a part, they could potentially resolve it and move forward instead of relying on Congress to accept their soft on crime rewrite as a whole. However, in my opinion, The solution to this problem is simple. Retrocede the land outside the Capitol complex and White House back to the state of Maryland. We've already done it with the state of Virginia. Then they'll be fully represented with elected officials, and the Capitol itself won't have to deal with the concerns that created the District of Columbia, that of a state garnering too much power by controlling the nation's capital. You might work in the Capitol, but you live in Maryland, or one of the many suburbs of a city that has grown far too large for our nation's good. But then, that wouldn't give Democrats 2 more senators and a representative in Congress, would it? At least that's the view from my front porch. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.